I told a fictional story earlier, and now we're going to be interviewing one of the fictional people from that fictional story. And this is going to be one half of the two crazy Irish brothers from the last podcast that were so terrifying that the native homeless gang decided they weren't going to stay on that corner. They effed off. So it's one of my favorites. It was one of the introductions. I noticed that those guys left after you moved in, and it was, it was great. The first thing I've got to ask you, what was it like working for Saul? Because Saul is not a believable person is the problem that I have with this. AI thought he was an amalgamation of like negative boss tropes.
He is like that's. I do not agree with AI, but AI got that right.
Yeah.
Everything you said about Saul, it's multiply that by like 1.5, and you've got the actual Saul.
Now you describe. He's been described as a bowling ball with legs.
Around the year 2000, the Spawn movie, the clown. That's how I. Yeah,
John Leguizamo, man. You see, I would liken him to Carl from Aqua Teen Hunger Force if he abused PEDs. That was always my kind of read on him. But
that's just two different stages in his life, though.
Yeah, moral void. I'm working on a podcast just about him and his history and all the various stories that I accumulated over 6 years of dealing with this guy. He did find out I was making fun of him on the internet a while ago. This wasn't the podcast. This was just me pointing out that like an 18-year-old got molested on his patio after I left and made the papers. So he was very upset about that. And
for those of you who don't live in Ontario, the legal drinking age is 19 here.
Yeah. So, it was saying the place is kind of like where you go if you're a child and you want a beer. And that's that's the foible, some of the pitfalls of that. The place very publicly experienced.
An actual child or a child at heart.
Yep. What's been likened, the bar, the Battison, has been likened to kind of Pleasure Island from Pinocchio. It's like you go there, it's kind of like it's like Las Vegas.
That's
and that's interesting because Las Vegas has been likened to the Pleasure Island on Pinocchio, and that's Saul's favorite city. Is Las Vegas. He flies there several times a year for crazy drug parties.
Yeah.
And his favorite thing to do is he goes to like some of these places where they let you shoot guns, because America, and he fires a 50 caliber Desert Eagle pistol.
Okay, normally people go to Las Vegas to go for the brothels that are legal there. That's usually what they say they're flying into Vegas for, if it's for a hedonistic pursuit.
The man, like his life is a brothel.
Yeah.
Like he lives, walking distance for a normal person. I assume he drives his Hummer back and forth from the place, but he lives next to a bathhouse and he's a regular. He's known as Stacy, I guess I'll say, on the bathhouse scene. And I found this out. I first moved to the village and I was trying to get a haircut, and I figured logically the gayest hairdresser would give me the best haircut. So I went and I found the gayest haircut person I could. And I mentioned where I was working at the Battison. He goes, "Oh, Stacy." Now, it's a couple of dynamics here. He was a major G dealer. And I found out later, like, to sell contraband in a bathhouse, you need to be very well vetted, if I can put it that way.
Mm-hmm.
I knew later another guy was dealing meth out of the same place, and he told me, "Jay, if the cops get me for dealing, they earned it." So in a bathhouse environment, there's only so far that a cop will go to get the bust. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of why. But he used to drive around like earlier on. He was known. He'd have a water bottle full of GHB just in his, like, in plain sight. He'd just have it on his in the cup holder of his Hummer. That's the moral black.
At the time we worked at the Battison, you lived on one side of the village, I lived at the other side of the village, right?
Yep.
And after most of our shifts, I'd go back to your place, we'd have a smoke, we'd eat some food, have a good time.
Did we ever?
There was at least one occasion where, I floated home. I was in no state to walk. I was just a cloud floating back home. And a Hummer pulled in. And a window rolled down. And then a shocked look realized who I was, and the window went back, and the Hummer drove off again. And I'm not going to tell you who was driving because I think you already know.
Just cruising.
And like, I look all big and beardy and whatever now. At the time, I was like 23 years old, and I looked fucking 17.
We were fresh faced.
Yeah.
I was like
fresh faced boys.
I was like a baby faced, like, fun looking little kid. And that happened at about 5-6 a.m. one morning.
Now I want to bring the focus back to you. Now you have a very Canadian story in that you for 2 years as an Irishman immigrated to Canada. And that's because there's so much Irish blood in the Canadian diaspora. I think that it'd be interesting to hear your experience. It'd be interesting to hear.
It's actually I only did the 1 year. I was when I qualified for the visa in 2010. It was only valid for 1 year. It was in 2011 that they added the extension that it could go for 2. I think technically I probably could have applied to get the extra year by the time it came in, but by the time I found out there was an extra year, there was a second year option. I'd already canceled my lease, given in my notice at work, fucking booked flights home. I was like, I guess we're just leaving. But it's actually, that's not my first time living there because I was there in 2008. I went for like a semester exchange thing when I was in college.
Whereabouts were you?
I was out in Scarborough in Centennial College.
What an introduction.
Yeah, so like I was there. One of the guys I used to train MMA with here in Ireland had moved over there a couple of years before me on a 1 year thing and stayed for significantly longer and ended up doing a stint in prison for like whatever crimes he committed.
Canada.
Yeah, so but anyway, he was over there training in Toronto BJJ. So I was kind of 6 months just like, college out in Scarborough, and then like a couple of times a week I get the TTC all the fucking way into Christie Pitts Park to get the training. I'm like, in hindsight, like, yeah, I did have a buddy there from my old gym. There were MMA gyms in fucking Scarborough.
Yeah, lots of them.
I would have done so much more training in that time if I went to a gym that I could fucking get to after college on like a random Tuesday. But whatever. You live, you learn.
You were telling me that this had kind of the Brazilian style training, where everybody went like full force during sparring.
Oh yeah. There was a BJJ gym primarily, but then like their striking and MMA side was like affiliated with Shootbox.
Yeah,
so
those guys are psychos.
Every sparring session, those guys were blitzing.
Well, you can always get another kid from the favela.
Yep.
If one gets hurt, so it's just okay. You get 10 kids from the favela.
It's a renewable resource.
8 of them are going to get hurt. 2 of them are going to become Anderson Silva. So,
and Anderson Silva's leg is going to snap.
Well, and you get some more kids from the favela. It's the Brazilian way.
Yeah, exactly. So. Yeah, that was that. It was a good gym, but like I said, it was too far from where I was living. It was like I was stupid, but like when I was in Extreme Couture, like I was living on Yonge Street and getting the TTC all the way out to Etobicoke. So like, same. When I joined Extreme Couture, I lived in Etobicoke. We were out there for like the summer, and then we moved into like Yonge Street during the winter. So like. It wasn't too bad like for the first couple of months, but like the last like 8-9 months in the city, I was like going to a gym like so goddamn far away.
In the winter on buses.
Yeah.
Hard stuff. Now you got to train with the great Mark Hominick.
Yeah, I was with his camp when he was training for the fight in Toronto against forgotten his name. McGregor knocked him out to win the title that time. He was undefeated for like 10 years.
The Brazilian kid?
Yeah, how am I forgetting his name? He got the big scar on his face.
The scar, yeah, I know exactly who you're talking about, Mr. Muay Thai.
It's been so long, I'm blanking on this guy's name.
I blame Dana White.
Yeah.
I blame him. I blame Slap Fight. I blame all the stuff that's crowding my brain again to get my MMA trivia.
I'm going to go find out this guy's name.
Google it. Yeah, this is the information age here.
Jamie, pull it up. We're talking about MMA. We have to say, Jamie, pull it up.
We're
I'm
trying to get a young
I'm my own
autistic boy.
goddamn
We're workshopping. We're trying to audition a young autistic boy to come do our tech for us.
Now, don't get me wrong. There's a lot of autistic Zoomers who have nothing going for them, but they just can't manage their life well enough to meet a timetable.
Jose Aldo. I mean,
there we go.
In my defense, it was 15 years ago, okay, and I don't follow the sport very closely anymore. But yeah, when he was training for Jose Aldo, I was involved with the camp. I was cannon fodder. I was like an extra body in the sparring rounds, like when he needed an easy round, basically. Like, let's be real.
That is compared to the guy on the street, that is freaking a 99th percentile fighting skill, just to be very clear.
But there were some great guys out there. Like there was like Hominick, Chris Horodecki, like Mark Bocek, Misha Serkinov. There's another guy, he's like a Chinese Canadian. He went on a season of The Ultimate Fighter at one point. I'm blanking on his name as well. But even when I was in Toronto BJJ, it was like Claude Patrick, who was in the UFC at one point, and like Ainsley Robinson, who was he like an Olympic wrestler for Canada, I think. But like there's
one of them. There's one Olympic wrestler that's
so like there was the guys I trained with over there. There's some really high caliber dudes.
Steel sharpens steel.
And I never got my diet clean and didn't train consistently enough, and in a sense it kind of saved me because I didn't go heavy into like competing. I didn't get CTE and mush my brain at like 20 years old.
I feel the same way, but it's funny how our hobbies ended up being moneymakers for us. Like when I was a seventh grader on a wrestling mat, I had no idea I'd be applying the holds that I was learning there, or using the balance and things that I developed there to make my living for a time in my life. And I think it just goes to show the importance of extracurriculars in school. Like you think if there hadn't have been coaches that volunteered their time to teach me how to wrestle, imagine how differently my life story might have played out. And there's one thing that
my first foray into martial arts was like, we had local kickboxing coach come into our school, do like self-defense seminars for like our PE classes for a couple of weeks when I was like 15, 16. So that was how I got my start in martial arts. Learned basically nothing, like completely worthless in the real world. But the guy got paid, so that's all he cared about.
When I think about the time that I dumped into less effective martial arts, like I did years in karate. I did Aikido training at one point to my great embarrassment.
A guy at my old office invited me to watch him train Aikido. They were literally doing push-ups off each other's chest. I wish I was making that up.
Nothing is gayer than straight people trying to project heterosexuality. It's just amazing. Like we're going to do the manliest stuff. We're going to be in tank tops. It's just amazing. It's just how quickly it goes there. Anyway.
Yeah.
I'm going to cite the 80s as my proof of that. The entire decade of the 80s is all these straight people trying to project straightness.
And doing cocaine.
And doing a lot of uncut cocaine. Who was the wrestler? There was one wrestler, Heartbreak Kid, Shawn Michaels. Somebody was partying with him, and it got out, and it was like, buddy, how can you do so much drugs? And he goes, kid, you never did coke in the 80s. So that was just
sounds about right.
Before it was adulterated. When it was a craft, when making cocaine, people took pride in their cocaine. None of this cartel mass production crap.
I mean, at one point in the 90s, there were like the HBK showed up on Raw like with his face like mangled, all bruised up and swollen. And like they had some storyline thing where he'd like gotten a beating, but like I can't remember the storyline in wrestling, but like the real life story was he pissed off some Marines when he was out partying like before and got his ass kicked. He ended up going clean and becoming born again Christian and everything, and so like
in the words of Jim Cornette, Sean couldn't whoop cream with an outboard motor. She's useless in a real fight.
Yeah.
What he said, he was like, "Can we get Sean to pin Brett during the Montreal screw job?" And Jim
Not
said,
for real, no.
if you try that, Brett will kick out at 2.5 and then beat the piss out of Sean right there on the TV.
Yeah.
At one point, he got his hair ripped out. Now, we want to tease a new series. We want to do eventually Radio Free Fighting, where we're going to review classic MMA shows in a riff track style.
I will come back for that. Yeah.
That will be a lot of fun.
Yeah, the classic ones are the best.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Like it's just.
When they had to make up rules for things.
Okay, what did Tank do this time? Okay, yeah, fish hooking. Okay, no more fish hooking.
It's basically just putting a camera on what we were already doing like 15 years ago, but sober.
Yep. And with especially some of these Brazilian promotions during this time, it was just like, you want to talk about the Wild West in America? Oh God, in Brazil it was crazy.
Also, one of the Vale Tudo shows, like World Vale Tudo, there was like some guy had his feet inside the other guy's like trunks.
It was Gary Goodrich.
Gary Goodrich, yeah, and he was getting like squeezing his nuts with his toes. Like, what the fuck?
Well, and then they get up, and then there's a race to see who can grab each other's dicks quicker. And for whatever reason, Gary is more skilled. And then he grabs his nut. The whole crowd is chanting, "Puta, puta, puta." So that was a proud moment for anybody who doesn't know. That is a MMA fighter from Barrie, Ontario, who is
Gary Goodrich is called skilled.
He is patient zero for CTE. He was the guy that taught me, like, oh, this has long-term consequences. This sport, they should be wearing headgear.
Yeah. And patient one is Chris Benoit, another local celebrity.
Oh my God, yeah.
The Insane Clown Posse wrote a song about Chris Benoit.
Right. They did. Oh, the Insane Clown Posse.
If you need motivation on the treadmill, there's club mixes of Chris Benoit by ICP that will, I don't care what your tastes are in music, that'll make you run.
Yeah.
It'll also make you decide that you want to play non-contact sports.
Well, when I looked at the Russian version of MMA, I noticed they all had headgear. And the Russians are not known for like valuing safety.
No.
So that,
or human life.
Yeah, or human life or anything. Now they'll wear headgear. They'll wear all the appropriate equipment. They'll wear a gi top, and then they'll wear freaking bicycle shorts. And then they come like to the gym, and they're like, "You grapple, yes?" And it's like, great. Now I've got spandex junk Russian. Oh God! Anyway, it's my least favorite thing about Sambo fighters is the bicycle shorts they wear. Yeah, probably wouldn't say that to Fedor's face, but what can you do? Now you you're doing something very interesting. We're doing an art series, and one of the things that came up in the art series is that poems were considered a very masculine warrior thing to do. Like the idea was that if you could not articulate the beauty around you and what was worth fighting for, you'd never be able to give it all on the battlefield. Yeah.
To be fair, all art was very masculine at some point.
That's fair. It was a very dude thing. Didn't let girls do it. But anyway, that's some of the tradition you're reviving. You kind of the warrior poet, and especially you were telling me the other day you're going to do some things in your native Gael, which is the word for Celtic that isn't anglicized, which is something you taught me many years ago.
Yeah. My Irish language skills are pretty piss poor.
Not as bad as my French.
It is like it's just it's a slow pace to kind of relearn some of it. I think there's kind of a big failing with the education system. Like I was in like a relatively like broke inner city school in the 90s in Catholic Ireland. I didn't get the best of educations. Things are better now, but I'm not a kid now. I was a kid in the 90s.
And remember, kids, condoms is a devil.
Yeah, pretty much. One of the big problems I had with learning the Irish language at the time was it was being taught kind of the way English is, not the way we had the option to French and German as well.
Okay.
French and German were being taught as if this is a new language you don't know. Irish was being taught as if you already have some level of proficiency, which I didn't.
Yep.
And then like we're kind of split into tiers with like a higher level, ordinary level, and then for certain subjects we have foundation level. So like I was the only kid in the junior cycle. So junior cycle brings you up to like 15 years old, thereabouts. I was the only kid in the class who was doing higher level for the Irish language.
Nice.
And so like, that was like school year starts in September, midterm is around Halloween, but by midterm, I'm already dropped back to ordinary because I don't even have a teacher. Like we're at a point like they couldn't allocate a classroom and teacher to just me.
Yeah.
So I was in the same room as all the ordinary students, but because there's like 20 of them and one of me, they're getting all the attention, and I'm being like told, "Hey, you do this," and being left there for 40 minutes. So I that kind of style of learning didn't work for me. So like my Irish language skills ended up being terrible. There is kind of a cultural push, and like I'm seeing the last kind of 10, 20 years to like try to revive the language. It's not huge, it's not mainstream, but it is something that I'm seeing more and more of. And so I'm trying to kind of get in on that zeitgeist and relearn. And so hopefully I would like to get to a level where I'm proficient enough that I can do some like writing and performing in the language too.
Well, if it's anything like Canada, you will open yourself up to some cultural grants. I'd urge you to explore that. I'm willing to vouch for you being Métis. If you ever need a leg up, and Métis. I married a fur trader when I was in Canada.
And if you're worried about that, they don't have any actual definition for Métis, so you're fine.
Yeah, that's the one they can't disprove.
Yeah.
There's no band lists or anything. You just anyone who says Métis, you gotta.
Métis means mixed.
Yeah, means probably was the children of the French fur traders and the native peoples.
In one specific parts of the country, in Manitoba, there's children of French people and fur traders in Nova Scotia, and the people in Manitoba say they're not really Métis. We're the Métis.
There's a lot. Yeah, anyway, they're a contentious bunch, and they weren't nice to the other groups of natives, so they're hated by the rest of the First Nations groups because they, with their French connections, they had better access to guns and stuff. So anyway, we're getting off on a tangent here, talking about our Indigenous peoples and their rich history. I'm working on an 1812 podcast right now, so I'm deep in basically the last gasp of the North American natives and military power. It's just a fascinating story. I can't wait to get into Tecumseh and all the battles and everything, but and Andrew Jackson's reaction to Tecumseh. But I've noticed again, some of the art that you're doing at the poetry readings and things in Dublin. It's one poem you did on pro wrestling that really touched me. It's neat to see. Again, this is what we're trying to do. We're trying to talk like Howard Stern about smart things. That's kind of our shtick. We're trying to do shock radio, but about like the Magna Carta. So like that's like
given the attention span these days, you're not getting it across any other way.
No.
And I do want to preserve our culture.
Yep. So we figure out that kind of thing, making it accessible, as they say. It's the battle cry.
Yeah.
Again, it was nice to hear something that would be perceived as high art praising something that is generally perceived as low art.
Yeah, but even that's like the message of that poem was about like this is escapism. Like there's a lot of shit in the world. I've got like this strong nostalgic tie to wrestling because like I grew up watching as a kid. I got all these memories, and like in a world where so much stuff is awful, this is my escapism. And like people being elite, why be elitist about what somebody picks as their escapism? Because like I could be watching wrestling, or I could be watching the World Cup, or I could be watching reality TV or Marvel blockbusters or whatever. What's the fuck? No, I'm not hurting anybody with any of those decisions. Like, what's the problem? And like that's kind of the point. Is like, it's wrestling is lowbrow, but when wrestling's bad, it's awful. When wrestling's good, it is like peak entertainment. Exactly. And it's a mixed bag, and you get what you get. And I still love it. For I'm almost 39 years old, and I'm still staying up. Like tonight, I'm gonna be up to like 5 a.m. watching a pay-per-view.
Which who AEW or
AEW? Yeah,
nice. I was gonna say about the what was it about the wrestling? The people, we're doing a series on how art got ugly, And the people who would wear their berets and sneer at pro wrestling or ska or any of these other kind of like perceived, polka, perceived working class kind of lower forms of art. These are the people who will like duct tape a banana to a wall.
Yeah.
And then claim that it's like, again. So again, you talk about a glass house.
Yeah.
Pay hundreds of thousands of dollars to be the person who has the rights to change the banana duct tape to the wall every day. Like you don't even get anything. You get the rights to tape the banana to the wall.
What was the guy?
I don't know the people involved, but I know the story, and it's just like on one point it's like, yeah, you're giving a message, whatever, blah blah blah. But then at the other point, it's like it's been several years now, and somebody still duct tapes a banana to the wall.
We're calling bullshit on the whole thing. I don't think they're even sending a message. I think they want you to think they're sending a message.
But in our calling of bullshit,
we want them. Something I couldn't give a shit about.
At the we have this need for art. Like if you look at the art that's preserved from cavemen, they didn't live in the caves. They undertook these really dangerous journeys to go and do art somewhere they knew it wouldn't get rained on. And one of the things we learned from this art, because they were doing these hunter gatherers that every moment is a struggle for survival. They're taking the time to do these elaborate, hyper realistic drawings of the various animals around them in these caves. And because of these people, we know that we got the anatomy of the Smilodon, the saber-toothed tiger, completely wrong. They didn't have bare teeth; they had jowls around their fangs. They look like kind of big bulldogs. It was really cute. Anyway, that's the need we have for art. Like even in the survival setting, in this,
it's funny you bring it back to that after because you're talking about people shitting all over like wrestling and ska for being like working class. It's our cave drawings of the animals they saw on the hunt, not the most working class of that era.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean? It's like that's a big thing for me. Like I was raised within the working class. I associate with the working class. Like there was a while I was working as a software engineer. I was I had hopes of upward social mobility and everything. But even if I was still in that industry with the way like the world is going, I was still working class. I would I was never, but be up more than half a rung above where I started. And that's the voice I perform with. This, I am of and for the working class.
The Arabs have a saying, you can't take off your skin. That always stuck with me when I heard that.
Well, the other thing is, if we want to talk about
leathers, you could take off your skin. That's all.
I was just going to say, if you want to talk about highbrow, lowbrow, like Jackson Pollock was supposed to be Cold War propaganda. Professional wrestling was supposed to be Cold War propaganda for 30 years. The bad guy was always a Russian stereotype.
But when one of the things we're struggling with is a definition of art, and I keep coming back to the reaction it causes, this shared experience. You're going to have so much more in terms of shared human experience and catharsis and everything that humans need from their art. You're going to have so much more of that at a wrestling show, even a local wrestling show, than you're going to have at some stuffy Momo gallery with a bunch of art that needs to be explained by a 10-paragraph essay to kind of explain why it's not just
and every essay is the same essay as well.
It's all point and click, likely done by AI at this point. About yada yada, something
starts a conversation.
Yeah, starts a conversation. So it's interesting to see as that the vestige of the quote unquote high art collapses. We're left with what we still do. We're left with things that we do even if art wasn't a concept, and whether that's scrawling on a cave wall or whether that is elaborate theater productions, where you're acting out these primal archetypes and these primal struggles, or whether it's a beat, whether it's a backbeat similar to a human heartbeat that just resonates with people all over the world, no matter their culture. Like there's a ska scene right now. It's the music that the Chicanos are using in LA to protest ICE. It's the anti-ICE music is Hispanic ska.
But even going back to like second wave ska in the UK, it was the whole black and white checker two-tone thing was because it was the melding of like the Caribbean immigrants and like the native British like working class, they were integrating, collaborating together, creating their music, and a lot of it was protests against the likes of Margaret Thatcher and
Yeah,
British
exactly.
conservatives and like
All the union boys.
it was like class solidarity of the era, and like so like the fact that like a genre like that is coming back up as the same type of message, just in the new settings, not surprising,
Now this
Well,
might,
also, I'm going to go one step farther back than that. Punk came out of all the same parts of England that the Puritans, the really low church Protestants, came out of in the Reformation 500 years ago.
when you look at what actually causes cultural change, it's not always the high art. It's the pamphlet. It's the meme. It's the things that would be dismissed as low art by people who want us to acknowledge their garbage as high art. And I would say, like, there's a view that Eastern Orthodox Christians have of the Bible. Like, they'll say the Bible isn't divine. You must search out divinity in the Bible. And I think it's the same with art. I think art isn't you can't just slap a label on something, call it art. Art's what moves you. Art's that thing that gets people collectively passionate and have the shared experiences. And there's this rich psychology that we have around beauty, basically, and things that get us moving, things we can all resonate with as a group. And that's what that's what I hope to take away. I want to do eventually a What Did I Learn podcast at the end of the art series. And my takeaway is going to be the answer to Momo is learn a craft.
Yeah.
The answer to Momo is get involved, make art again, even if it's part-time. It should. I don't think art, again, not really supposed to be your income. That's a new thing. Like the guys that were scrawling on cave walls, one part of their day, they still had to go plant bananas. They still had to go freaking slay beasts and, eat mice and whatever the hell else they had to do to survive, build their huts.
Well, and even when it became their income, they were like tradesmen. They were not viewed as, high status people in society.
It was like a guild. It was like any other, the Squinters or Scriveners and all those do it. Other trade. It was like, you're getting you're dealing with the same guys who'd paint your house is going to paint the Sistine Chapel roof. You just
my Monday to Friday is selling tickets at a theater, so
exactly. But that's getting involved. That's like the vividness. What I've talked a little bit about my adventures in the punk scene, and what I think was valuable in it is that it broke down the barrier between art and artist. It created this collective experience where anyone could pick up a guitar or anybody could get involved in the scene and be part of creating this art. And I think that's the thing. Art means so much more to people when it comes out of their own community, when it's something local. Like if they look at the art that I like, it is pictures of rocky shore, small lakes in Northern Ontario. That's what resonates with me. That blows my, that's what I would put on my wall. That's that's what I like. So, it's just, that's what makes that's what gets my heart up. And I think everybody, has something different, but it's the importance to bring it to Skinner. Art is the primary stimulus. Art is the thing that moves you without any explanation, without it needing to be paired with anything. It's it's the smell of food that gets the dog to, that's
salivate,
basically, and that's why it's so powerful. That's why so many people want to be part of that. You look at Joe Rogan, right? Bring him up. Now, Joe Rogan is a very simple man that got a lot of opportunities in his life and has done some very interesting things with them. But he had no hope in his little pothead world of resisting the kind of powers that came. And we're going to influence him once it became clear that he had this massive audience. So people, for whatever reason, react to Joe Rogan. People have this bond with him, whatever. All the people now, all the powerful people, be it the Trump administration, be it whatever tech oligarch is in the back room with them. These people now have all this influence, but they need to go to Joe Rogan. They need to bring him for
the guy who hosted Fear Factor. If you're above a certain age,
the UFC commentator.
He got into he had to like throw a guy into a front face lock at on Celebrity Fear Factor, and like the Miz and WWE had to try like break them up.
But that's the guy. Again, you look at Trump is in the Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame. So the art that is deciding, the art that's moving our culture is not the art on the wall at a modern museum of modern art.
Like I'd like to pretend that I'm better than supporting WWE because I watch AEW, but like it's still run by a billionaire. Like he doesn't have like the public track record that Vince McMahon has of being such a piece of shit, but he's still a billionaire. So like you got to question how the family got there and who got exploited along the way.
Well, it's like the difference between the artist who does it as a hobby and the artist who does it for a living. The guy with $1 billion, the guy who's not working a job, is he really going to be able to relate to the people he's trying to move?
No,
I'd argue not. When I've interacted with the hyper rich, it's like aliens. And apparently these aliens, with a little bit we know about their very secretive world, they love this shit art. They get together and they watch this. They have people do hokey performance art pieces for them. Like everybody's talking about, oh, the Clinton emails, yada, yada, yada. The interesting thing for me in the Clinton emails was the spirit cooking. Not because I think she's in a cult, but because really this is what she does with her spare time. She has this weird woman come and like put food on naked people. And it's like, really? This terrible.
Podesta has all this really creepy pedo-erotic stuff in his house that he invites people over. Not even like in the back room, in his living room, he has all this stuff.
Yeah,
like children in slaughterhouses, that kind of thing.
Morality is for the middle class.
Yeah,
and morality is for working people. Morality is not for the very rich. Morality is not for the destitute. Morality is, for whatever reason, these two groups feel morality does not apply to them. I'd liken it to, at a certain point, when you get powerful enough, the only people you're interacting with are an ecosystem of yes men. Like I'll use the example of, say, Will Smith, or maybe a better example would be Michael Jackson. I know he's a little dated at this point, but that's the best example I can think of. He was accused of abusing children, and he decided he was just going to go on Oprah and explain that, like, no, Oprah, I have them sleep in my bed, but it's not sexual. It's just like a sleepover. How many grown adults that worked for him had to say, yes, Michael, just explain that the children are sleeping, you're not molesting them. It's just a creepy bedroom time.
Even if what you're saying is 100% honest, no, you're not that looking good.
Now, he thought about maybe going on the Howard Stern show instead of going on Oprah. And there was an interview with him and Howard Stern that he details in one of his books. And Howard swore, and this was in like 1994, this book was published, that he had no nose. He said the guy's prosthetic fell and he noticed that he had no nose in the early 90s. So, but you think about Tom Cruise, you think about these people with these bizarre public outbursts, and it's because they're surrounded by an ecosystem that's entire purpose is just to keep them happy and not bruise their ego. And you can be the strongest person. You can be freaking Jesus. You can be Moses. You can be Abraham. If you're surrounded by that kind of toxic environment, you're screwed. You're going to lose touch with people that exist outside of an echo chamber that just, exists.
My brother was working at Twitter when Elon Musk bought it. So like I can't remember exactly what his role was, but he was working at a job where he basically had a line to Elon Musk. There was like communication between my brother and Musk. Like he was basically just a petulant child who just, if he wasn't getting what he wanted, threw his toys out of the pram. I mean, like, I don't need to tell you that from like somebody else's anecdotes. I mean, anybody who's seen Elon Musk like in the media in the last decade knows. But yeah, like he's like, surrounded by yes men, and then when he's in any situation where somebody within the company or like EU legislation or whatever comes up that's not telling him yes, it's just like tantrums and
he needs to get back to his roots with the common man and go to Burning Man. Like, how do you even do that?
Well, he needs to manage.
Well, he can't go to Burning Man because then he'll have to be face to face with his ex, and they got everything with the custody of the kids. Like, so he can't go there.
Well, it flooded the one year.
But flooded a lot of years.
This brings me back to Saul. The ruling class acts like Saul.
Yeah, pretty much.
Now, AI had an interesting thing. I fed one of the scripts of the old podcast into AI, and it said that Saul was indicative of the managerial revolution. He said, like, this is a really good story talking about like the owners screw off. They hire these people who end up being psychopaths to run their business. But that's the kind of thing. It's these people act like, whether it's Trump, whether it's Musk, all these whether it's Steve Jobs, all these people end up acting like just sketchy club owners that have no limits. And it's that same kind of thing. You've got all this ecosystem of the club around you trying to keep you happy to get what it wants out of you.
Yeah. And
it's that same trap, just on a very very, very much lower scale.
But you've got rules and regulations and legislation around doing things in a certain way that's, supposedly like the safe and moral and whatever way to do it. And then you get the club owners who are just like, okay, how do we get around that?
Yep.
How do we not do the thing that's keeping the people who are just barely not children who drink in our establishment safe? How do we get away with not putting those frameworks in place?
How do we hyper optimize gaming the system, basically?
Yeah. And there's we're gonna put a spiky gate around the whole place.
Yeah.
Let's put spikes around it. It'll be like that Star Trek episode where they fight. But if
the gate has spikes, you don't need as many security in the place to actually run run the place.
And if the kid killed themselves, well, thin the herd out a little.
Yeah,
you're gonna lose a few. This is a nightclub. After we left, the place has seen kind of hard times. I was working with people whose day job was at a hospital, and they said, "Dude, every night somebody's rolling in, bleeding from that place." The security ended up getting beaten up on the dance floor. Jesus. Like they got surrounded and got the shit kicked out of them.
This is a student bar. This doesn't happen at a student bar.
Yeah, it shouldn't happen.
No, it shouldn't.
Now they produce a body I've kept numbers, about every 2 years someone dies right in front of the place. Like there's a body. The first homicide in Ontario of 2025 was outside of this fictional place. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't exist.
Also, like we went there in winter last year just to meet somebody. We were rolling up, there was an ambulance in front of the place.
Yep. Well, and then there was the forensics, the cop. I have pictures of the forensic team after, again, one of the murders doing that. There's people stabbed. One of the doormen was stabbed after we left. They now, for insurance purposes only, I'm sure, have to wear stab vests.
Well, that wasn't Kavan anyway, dude.
No, he would have fucking not. He would have gotten around it.
I mean, someone pulled a knife on him one time when I was still working there.
Oh, Jesus.
And I don't know what he did, but he peacefully got the guy out of the bar. And he wasn't known for being a talker, like,
Oh, that's how you know you're dealing with a guy who grew up at the Jane and Finch. He knows exactly how to deal with a knife wielding maniac. So you get suddenly polite, get him out. But
that is a guy who needed to get into like an MMA gym
desperately.
He did. He had incredible natural ability, natural talent, very athletic guy. If he'd gotten himself like serious training, like he was built like the likes of John Jones and Phil Davis.
We used to call him John Jones.
Yeah.
This is when Johnny was just coming up, but he had that very athletic, narrow hip, kind of big upper body build. There was not a scrap of extra weight on him.
I remember we were just kind of tussling outside the front one night. I think it was a Monday night when, it was just the basement. And like, he just like put me upside down like it was nothing, like had me on the ground. Like I had weight on him. I was bigger than him, a little shorter, but like heavier. And he just like I was nothing. Like I was just a fucking, like a sandbag, just had me tossed around like a fucking kid.
There's something to be said for West African genetics. You worked with the great Amadou.
Oh yeah.
Now
have we talked about Amadou on
a couple of the podcasts? Basically, Kevon was indigenous to Canada. He grew up here, probably, had some mixed ancestry. Amadou was from the jungle. Amadou was from like a small village in the Ivory Coast, somewhere off the beaten path. And I talked to him and I was like, what happened? How'd you end up in Canada? And he said, well, a militia rolled into my village and they were going to convert us to Islam forcibly. And I said, fuck that. So he fought his way to the city and then got on a plane to Canada, said he was a refugee. They let him right in. And,
because he spoke French.
Essentially, yeah, he spoke beautiful French. His English was clear. You could understand him, but he had a very thick accent. But his French was beautiful. His French like scared people. Whenever we had issues with the French diaspora, we'd bring him to the front and he would start speaking in his accent, and they would realize it was, like Ivory Coast. And they'd be like, oh, pardon, monsieur. Excusez-moi, and they'd leave.
I actually had nights with him where like I was the new kid. So he was like, he was going to run point talking to these drunks. He didn't want me doing it. Had to be him. But they were Irish drunks.
Okay.
And so like he couldn't understand a word they were saying, they couldn't understand a word he was saying. And so now I'm acting like as a translator, getting like his like thick Ivory Coast accent English, translating that to drunk Irish English. And like, yeah, and it was the funniest thing because like, yeah, like
communication was vitally important. I mentioned in the podcast that we had to work with the skeleton crew because Saul was cheap and didn't care if we lived or died. So we worked with the skeleton crew, and our biggest thing was communication and having like, you know, somebody who understood the culture of whoever was showing up. Because again, in Toronto might be an Eritrean party. We don't know. Might be Botswana. It could be literally any party you could name, any group of people you can name can show up at your door in Toronto. I had freaking North Koreans a couple of times. Cool. I had Vatican City. Like I got the ultra rare Pokemon I got on my freaking ID checklist.
Show up dressed like the Swiss Guard or what?
He had his thing on. He was a priest.
Okay.
He had his like, what do they call the collar?
Collars, yeah.
Yeah, he had that on. The North Koreans were funny. The first one we found was not a defector. They send people over here on like fake Chinese visas to learn English. And this girl was like, we found her purse and we went through it to try to find her ID to get it back to her. And we found her North Korean ID. So we figure out who she is. She's 6 feet tall. She's a very tall girl. It shocked me. I figured she'd be a little person. And I gave her the purse. And I said, "Oh, you're from DPRK." And she looked at me and she just had this terrified look in her face. And she just grabbed her bag and ran out of the bar. And then the next guy, it was a refugee from DPRK. A lot of times what happens is they go to Korea and like the South Koreans are like racist against the North Koreans. Apparently they call it like unreliable, but that's like the worst thing you can say about someone in Korea. That's like, you know, in that context. So a lot of them end up leaving, coming to North America. Like Yomi Park is one example. And one of them, I guess, ended up in Canada, and I see his refugee papers and it says DPRK. So I'm like, dude, you're from DPRK. You know, my family had to escape Stalin. You know, you must be very brave. And he was very suspicious. They're all very suspicious people. But I said, but anytime, you know, you need line bypass, you come up and I'll give you line bypass. And he came a few weeks later with his friends, and he's clearly expecting me to like hit him up for a bribe or something, but I just let him in, and he was shocked. And like nobody does something for you in North Korea. That's just not. They're all apparently clinically paranoid by our standards. It's just a survival adaptation for that hyper snitch environment. And I got talking to him a little bit, and eventually I knew him well enough. I gave him a hug. I'm a hugger, and it was like hugging a skeleton. Homie was slight. I was shocked. On the other side of that, the human rainbow, at one point, there was a UFC event in Toronto, and we had Lyoto Machida's Brazilian boxing coaches show up, wanting to see the inside of the place. And I was like, guys, how do I know that you're, the trainers? Like, how do I know you're not? And they pull up their phones. They show me pictures of them training Anderson Silva, pictures of them with Machida. I was like, okay. So I tapped one of them on the shoulder. I said, yeah, buddy, you come on in. Don't worry. And I thought for a moment he was smuggling a bowling ball. Just the density and size of his shoulder that I tapped. I was like, holy shit. It was like granite. I was
so just
like,
to be clear, it wasn't Steven Seagal then.
No, God, no.
Yeah. I famously taught Anderson Silva the front kick.
That maybe, we don't know. It's weird that a guy who can't lift his leg past his waist is going to teach the front kick to a guy.
Yeah,
but
invented
that's
it.
Unusual. I guess that's a monument to his skill and athleticism. Apparently he came up bullying, like he was like the enforcer for some like sketchy Japanese Aikido dojo because he married the daughter of the dojo, like his first marriage. And I guess when you're 6'5" in Japan, like maybe Aikido does work. I went on to work with a guy who'd been his bodyguard for 6 years, and the guy was tight-lipped. Like clearly he'd signed an NDA or something. And all I could get out of him, like I couldn't get any Steven Seagal stories out of him. Like I'm sure you have 1,000. All I could get from him is, yes, he is a dick to his stuntmen. He always wants guns. He wants his bodyguards to be armed if at all possible in any country. So that's what he thinks of his martial arts skill. And he swore up and down that the guys actually can do the Aikido stuff. I was like, really? It's like, yeah, he can do it. Steven Seagal can do it. We know he broke Sean Connery's wrist.
I didn't know that.
He did that. He was training him for a James Bond movie. That's how he got into Hollywood. He was like one of these Frank Dukes, Bullshido guys that the Hollywood people are just too stupid
Yeah,
to
we also
realize
know
it's
that
not.
Judo Gene LaBelle choked him unconscious.
Yep, that was
Yeah.
great. Now,
Yeah.
we don't know if he shit his pants or not after he was choked out, but the
He
story
may
goes,
or may not have. That is
Yep.
not confirmed.
yeah, he may or may
It
not
is
have.
also not denied.
Yep.
But
So there's a,
the only person to deny it is Steven Seagal.
but he's
Judo
such a
Gene
credible.
LaBelle has never denied it.
So Steven, they were on the set of a movie, and Steven was running his mouth about how nobody could choke him out. He was immune to chokeouts. And you do that in front of like a judo catch wrestler, tough as nails, legit guy. He was like, really? Okay, let's try it. And he put Steven in the rear naked, and Steven immediately tried to hit him in the junk and then passed out.
Yep. It was the same guy who's trained Ronda Rousey, trained Roddy Piper, and he
pro
was
wrestling and legit fighting.
Yeah, and he was the referee for Muhammad Ali and Antonio Inoki, I believe.
Yep, he was. That's
I remember that. I forgot about that.
Yeah.
It's amazing. We lost him a few years ago.
He was one hell of a
guy.
resume.
He lived well into his old age, which you're not going to see with the current generation of MMA guys. I'll tell you that much.
No.
It's like, hey guys, let's just not test for PEDs anymore because they because we want Connor to fight. Yeah. Oh God, that was horrible.
I don't think I think his knee was already gone before the fight.
Yeah, there's no way. He walked out.
He wanted to check. I didn't watch the show, but it's impossible to not catch highlights. And I'm seeing clips of his knee wobbling on the way into the cage.
Yeah, he didn't do his normal stuff.
He was just like, I'm gonna get thin enough to meet the scales and get paid. And that's what he did.
Now the best part of this is he's got 2 fights left on his contract. He should fight CM Punk.
I mean, he might win that.
I'd pay him to see him fight CM Punk at this point.
Yeah, nobody thought his career was on an upward trajectory after the incident with the bus.
No. And then Vince, speaking of Vince McMahon, he could not have choreographed a more perfect beef between these guys. And it turns out the Dagestanis don't really understand selling a fight.
Yeah.
They just understand challenges to duels to the death.
Yeah.
It was but that brings us back to one more guy. Now, AI also thought that Russ the Russian was a compilation of people, of stereotypes.
Which he kind of was.
Yeah, you knew Russ.
I knew Russ.
You were there for Russ's, some of the Russ incidents. I remember.
What is it? Halloween?
Yeah. What? It's Halloween?
Yeah, I remember.
And the one point the frat boys got out of line with him, and the frat boy wanted to fight him, and he knocked him down to his knees with one punch. And the frat boy, being a moron, looks up at him and goes, "That's all you got?" And Russ was like, "No," and grabbed him by the back of the head and tie kicked him. Tie kneed him.
For reference, he was training under Carlos Newton at the time.
Carlos Newton is a hell of a fighter.
Yeah,
he's a famous Toronto early MMA guy. Mm-hmm. This is a guy who, was it him that beat Butterbean? No, I'm thinking Patrick Smith was the guy that beat Butterbean, but and hell of a fighter. And yeah, he really, especially in kickboxing and stuff, he's very renowned. Yeah. So, but Russ and the frat boys never bothered Russ after that. Russ's name was actually Russ. Good luck picking him out of the.
It sounds fake.
He probably died fighting in the Ukraine, I'm guessing.
I mean, there's a non-zero chance of that, yeah.
So now, speaking of Dagestan, did you hear about the little bit of trouble Khabib got into?
I didn't.
He might have been training terrorists to go. He might have been using his gym as a front to train terrorists. What are you gonna do? It's Dagestan. That's part of the culture.
Yeah.
It's what they do. He was sending them to Ukraine to fight against the Russians, basically. So we'll see. That's why everybody's been pretty quiet about the Khabibers lately. Yeah. We'll talk about going out on top. Jeez, but we got to talk. One more thing about the mullet wearing UFC 4 competitor.
Harold Howard.
He had a very interesting story, and it's a local story, so I want to bring it up. He got CTE. He was one of these strip mall karate guys, And he eventually got CTE from a combination of MMA and I'm sure bar fighting. And he ended up in a beef with the Casino Niagara people. And he decided he was just going to go full Terminator and just drive his car through the entrance. So he ended up in jail. He's out of jail now and he's teaching martial arts again. So Harold, if you're out there, Harold, we want to interview you, buddy. We want to hear your story. I want to hear your side of things. I bet that those security were being dicks. I want to know.
You totally did not get that idea from Trailer Park Boys.
I want to know. I want to know what pushed you to that.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to hear about breaking concrete and all that craziness.
Harold, if you're out there, if you're coming on, come on.
Next time you're going to do the Rolling Thunder kick and you're going to land it, buddy. You just missed them. You just missed them with the Rolling Thunder.
Yeah.
Now, I want to end this again. We talked a lot about art. I want to end this with your poetry. If we wanted to explore your poetry, what would be the best way to do that? We wanted to connect with it
through my Instagram, Ned_Mahon_poet. That's where I post most of my stuff. I've got some stuff that are in text, some of it's performance. That's kind of where the bulk of it goes.
Anything else you want to hawk?
At the moment, no. I'm at a point now where I'm getting something ready to start looking at like publishing options.
Awesome.
But I don't have anything to plug yet.
Yeah.
So I'm only I kind of got back into writing 18 months ago, 2 years ago. And it's really kind of the last 12 months that I'm kind of really giving like a solid push. So I'm at a point now where I'm kind of trying to build a profile, get some followers, get a collection of poetry written, and so I'm hoping within the next 12 months to have like some that to be somewhere along the lines of getting a book out. At the moment, I'm just getting a few kind of smaller pieces ready to send to literary journals, see how that goes. It's early days. It's kind of a new venture for me.
Well,
I had been working as a software engineer up until February last year. The last company I was with shut down, and
that's the way that goes.
I basically had 12 months where I was being paid to just check my laptop a couple of times a day. We knew the company was closing, but because it was a telecommunications platform, there was like regulations around like a wind down and stuff, and then they had kind of contract agreements with some of their bigger clients. So they needed like just enough staff and like retention contracts. So I was kind of kept on as like the main front end engineer for the web platform, but there was no work. So I was getting like a full time engineer salary for a year with no job. So then at the end of the 12 months, job was gone. I was looking for other work, and it was kind of a situation like the remote work options have just been kind of scaling back further and further. So I live in where I'm living in Waterford in the southeast of Ireland. It's kind of, it's quite small. There's not a lot here like in the industry, at least not like relevant to my niche. I was going to a situation where I'd either need to relocate or start like commuting a couple hours each way, like to like a city like Dublin, which I've got like a 5-year-old, and I'm going through a divorce. I have limited time with my 5-year-old.
Exactly.
If I start doing that, it kind of just eats into my time with my child. So it's like, that is not my priority. I would rather struggle to find something here than like get a great salary and like sacrifice my relationship with my kid.
Yeah,
it got to the point at I had one job lined up back in October, but to start on the 1st of October, I got an email the day before to pull the contract, because the company were supposed to have like a major contract coming in, worth 6 figures a year for them, and that was basically going to pay my salary out of that, and that was the work I was going to do. And when that didn't happen, there was no job for me, and so it got to the point there around like the end of the year, end of last year, start of this year, that like I kind of had to kind of evaluate what I was going to do, because it was looking like tech was less and less of an option. I didn't want to do it, but it's what I knew how to do. And I knew once I was 12 months officially unemployed, I was going to qualify to go on to the scheme. and like the jobs that were offered through the scheme are like it's community employment. It's some of them are like made up jobs or like kind of not really necessary jobs, or like they take in extra staff into like, you know, community centers and stuff to give people so people can learn skills. And other ones are like, you got nonprofits like the theater where they need staff, but they're a nonprofit and they're operating on thin margins, and like they use the community employment to bring in extra staff. So it's like I knew I was going to hit that point at like sometime in March. I was going to, but the first of March I was going to be eligible for the scheme. So like, right, I got 2 months left. I'm going to camp out for 2 months, and I know that once I'm eligible for the scheme, there's 2 theaters in town. There's a couple of different like theater groups and arts groups. There's some galleries. I'm like, there are a lot of kind of non-profit organizations around Waterford that do like have employment through this scheme. I'm like, fuck it. This is how I'm going to get myself out of tech into the arts world. It's going to be like, you know, major hit on like my annual income and everything, but like quality, my life satisfaction is totally like, it's totally better than it's been in 15 years.
And that's way more important.
Yeah. You know, not to dox myself, I work in tech as well. And, you know, this 2 years of working on an art history series, we're talking about spinning that off as a book as well. Cause, you know, if we can sell that to somebody, sell some copies of it, being a wage slave is for the birds.
The grand tragedy of my life is I learned to fight as a kid because I was a theater dork. And I got to a point in my early 20s where I realized I wasn't going to be able to make my living in theater. And I stopped doing art for 20 years. And that was if I had to look back at something that cost me the most, I'd say it was that. Like doing my little painting, my freaking Warhammer miniatures, doing this podcast. It means so much to have that connection to creation.
Yeah. Like in 2013, I did like the NaNoWriMo, like the National Novel Writing Month.
Yep.
Like November 2013, I wrote like 50,009 word manuscript for a novel. At the same time, 2013 into early 2014, I had every 2 weeks I was posting a short and it was short stories, but it was an ongoing like installment thing on the blog. I had a blog going for I think I hit about 20 or 22 installments. Nice. And like by the end of 2014, I basically stopped writing. Even though I'd been producing so much 12 months previous. And like, you know, here I am now. I'm like, if I had been doing that consistently instead of going into tech, where like how much different trajectory would like life have taken, you know? But you know, you live, you learn. I'm here now. Better late than never, right?
Now, you're an Irish poet. I got to bring up Oscar Wilde. And he was Irish, not English. He grew up in, anyway.
All of the best English writers in the last like 150 years are Irish.
Yep, 100%. Yep.
All of the best English celebrities are Irish. Except Conor McGregor, he is an Englishman. Yep, fully English. No links to this island whatsoever. We do not claim him. we don't need like, you know, rapists who beat up old men in pubs. We've got enough of those. We don't want more. He can go to the UK for all I care.
Oh, amen. I felt the same way about Rob Ford when he was in his prime. He's like, yep, this is the face of our country right now.
American. He's from the US. Yeah, Rob Ford is an American. He's not Canadian.
But I got to bring up Oscar Wilde. Oscar Wilde had a quote that really stuck with me. And he said, "You must always be friends with failed artists, because failed artists end up having to live their art." Jeez, and I hope that, looking back on my life, I think that that's what I did. I think that's why I bounced for so long. I think that's why it's so nice kind of telling my stories, you know, producing history podcasts and stuff is I've lived my art.
I mean, look, the poetry I wrote when I was like in my early 20s is all like fucking unrequited love bullshit about crushes I had that I didn't have the balls to talk to.
Yep.
And now I'm like writing poetry about like how broken up I am, but like the way the changes in my life have in fact impacted my relationship with my daughter. I'm talking about like, you know, like being trapped in like a toxic marriage that was like hurting me. I like, you know, the actual real like things that, you know, that don't seem petty. And like, yeah, I lived a life that gave me art to make.
Yeah. Leonard Cohen said, Leonard Cohen said that if your life is burning properly, art is just the ash.
Also, you look at all the best writers in history, they fall into two groups. The first ones are the ones who got famous in their 20s when, they were young men with something to prove and all the ambition. And the other one is people like Dostoevsky, who didn't get famous till they were in their 40s, writing the wisdom of an old man, looking at the next generation, saying, man, you guys just have no idea what life has in store for you.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's nice to be on the other side of that coin, from the kid that desperately wants to create but has nothing to say, which is where I was in my early 20s.
That's where I started, and now I got a lot to say.
Exactly.
But do you know what? I want to bring back to something you said before we wrap up. So, you were talking earlier about Saul going to Vegas to shoot guns.
Yep.
The first ID I ever confiscated from a kid at the Madison, it was like a fake, like Montreal, I think, license. This dude was like, he had a Canadian, he had an Australian accent, and and it was a very obvious fake. Anybody could fucking tell. Even in the French language writing on the back of it, the word novelty was there in French. Right? It was such an obvious fake. But I kept it. It's the only the only ID from back then that I kept. I still have it in a memory box or someplace. A couple of years later, I was sitting on the couch downstairs with my dad, watching when the border control shows. There was a Canadian one of those, and there's these two brothers with fucking Australian accents being fucking grilled, and I'm like, okay, this kid looks familiar, and I'm watching, and it just clicks with me. I'm going to go upstairs and check my drawers, and I find the ID, and it is the same fucking kid.
Oh wow!
Right? Still getting stopped at checkpoints.
Right? And the reason I brought up the thing with Saul shooting the guns, the reason they got pulled in was because they were going across the border in a U-Haul.
Jesus.
And I think the whole thing was they were, because of their age, they were too young to get a proper rental car, but they were able to get a rental U-Haul. And what they wanted to do was drive into the US to shoot guns and then go back up to Ontario. So they're trying to cross the border into Ontario, just two random kids in their early 20s in an empty U-Haul. The only thing in the back of the truck was shell casings, and that's why they got pulled in. And it's just and it's the same fucking kid, and he's pulling the same shit he was pulling at the Maddie, just like the baddie, just with his fucking little prick. That's
a typical Madison patron.
Yeah,
that's let's go shoot guns.
How does that save any money over getting a discount flight to the States and buying ammunition going to a range? I don't see
you have way too much processing power.
Okay.
Yeah. You're drinking beer and you've decided you want to go bang. Someone's got to go bang. You got to make the bang happen.
All right.
What can you do?
We bring the boom.
There's a U-Haul to make the bang happen. So I did this past week, I wrote a poem about bouncing.
Nice.
And so I want to, before we finish up, I do want to read that one on here.
Yeah, go right ahead.
There.
So let me just find, I got it open here. Okay. I clock in for my shift, then head out to the gate. Don't wait up at home. I'm going to be out until late. I scan down the line, all hot pants and heels. I can't understand why, because it's minus 15 degrees. In my parka and gloves to keep some heat in, I pull out my clicker and flashlight, and so it begins. It's the typical mix. She's too drunk, he's too young. This group was respectful. You guys head in and have fun. Check out this girl with a glint in her eye. You stand back, Jay. This one's all mine. What's your name, girl? What's your sign? Are you sure you weren't born in 2009? Go home to your sister and give back her ID. You'll have to try harder to get one past me. How can I tell when you look so alike? That card says 5'11", but you're more like 4'9". We hit that point in the night. The bar can't take any more patrons. Folks, if you still want to come in, then please have some patience. Most just want to be warm. They head somewhere else instead. But there's always that one guy who has to stay and wreck my head. Listen, buddy, we're full to the brim, so it's ebb and flow. If you want to get in, someone else has to go. There's one out now. Left-hand click. Away in you go. Come on, make it quick. Right up to now, the night's been without strife. But all it takes is one nuisance to bring it all to life. I get a radio call. One coming out, keep the gate clear. This could be the one that kicks the shift into gear. He yells and he swears, and he causes a fuss, but he's just being mouthy. He's no trouble to us. He keeps carrying on. He won't go away. Get some sleep, sober up, try again another day. This goes on so long, his vitriol starts to fade, and he starts to regret the drunken choices he's made. So now it's, please let me in. I promise I won't fight. I look the kid square in his eyes. Sorry, mate. Not tonight.
Dude, that was great.
So that's got the Dr. Seuss meter to it.
I
So you
love
need to
it.
get an illustration to do the Sorry, you need to get an illustrator to do the pictures
I-
Dr. Seuss
I have
style.
got, like I said, I've got a 5-year-old. I've been reading a lot of Dr. Seuss.
Yeah.
Dude, it was great.
Yeah. But I wrote that about minus 15 degree weather while sitting in a fucking park in like 30-degree weather.
Mhm.
I'm trying to put myself in the mindset of like freezing Toronto weather, but like, yeah, I was sweating like a bastard.
Well, dude, I'm glad that you're somewhere warm. I'm glad the winters are more forgiving. We're going to have you back on for the Radio Free Fighting. And if you ever
Yeah.
want to come on and read another poem or something, we'd always love to have you.
Open invite.
Yeah. I mean, I just like chatting.
Me too, buddy. All right, like and sub. Make sure you follow Ned's poetry.
Yeah, I'll put the link to it in the description.
Right on.
Awesome.